Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Mike Beam. I'm the Director of Planning Engineering for the South Dakota Department of Transportation. You are here tonight because we want to hear from you. So the meeting format for those of you that have attended in the past is going to be a little bit different, but hopefully it's good. It's intended to be more of a conversation. So as we go throughout the night, I'm going to be asking for input on a couple of just very broad topics. One of those is going to be safety. So I want you to be thinking about some things that you've maybe seen in other states, things you've seen nationally, or ways that we can help improve safety in South Dakota. Another one's going to be how can we help improve our infrastructure? What have you seen in other states? What works well? What hasn't worked well? Again, we're trying to get better, hear from our customers and hear from you, trying to make better lives with better transportation. I want to make an introduction if I could. Secretary Junt is here with us as well. Secretary Junt, thank you for joining us. Craig Smith, our Director of Operations, is over here. Mark Leiferman, our Project Development Engineer, and Levi Briggs is here as well. Travis and I are going to kind of tag team this conversation here for the next 6 hours. So hopefully you've got your water. Thank you. But we are going to try to tag team this, and we do want it to be more of a conversation. Mark Rice is going to be here with a microphone. So if you do have something to say, you want to provide some input, go ahead and raise your hand. Mark will bring that microphone over to you. If you please introduce yourself, who you represent. We can start that conversation. That's how we're going to handle it tonight. Again, the meeting is being recorded, and it's being recorded so our Transportation Commission can listen to your thoughts and ideas. Our Transportation Commission will take the overall approval list document and the construction program up at their August meeting. So tonight is an opportunity to hear from the public on the projects that are planned, issues you're seeing out there, and again, how can we get better? Travis, you just want to introduce your team?
Sure. First of all, I have a couple people here from the Mitchell region, so I'll introduce those. Slide to come up. All right, so the Mitchell region, we're down here in the southeast corner of the state. With us tonight, our Sioux Falls area engineer in the northeastern part of our region is Harry Johnson, and Harry is sitting right here down in the front row. Down in the southeast corner of the state in the Yankton area, we have Greg Rothschadel, area engineer down there. He is with us tonight. And then finally, Jay Peppel in the Mitchell area was not able to be here tonight due to a previous family commitment, but overall, that's our team here for the Mitchell region. All right, so the Mitchell region here, we're made up of 22 counties here in the southeastern part of the state. And the graphic up here is basically just to show you that overall, for the next 4 years, our projects are pretty evenly distributed here throughout our region to address those transportation needs that we have on our system. So we're showing our project that are in the 4-year STIP, and then we also have those developmental projects that are outside of the 4 years. Those are shown in the yellow or gold color here up on the screen. One thing to keep in mind, I realize this isn't very clear, but if you get a chance to go out to our website, dot.sd.gov, you can jump on our interactive STIP map, dive into these projects a little bit more, get some information on the type of improvement, limits of the project, the estimated costs, and the time frame for those projects.
So Travis, did have a chance to talk with Mark Peterson. He's up in the Aberdeen region here last night a little bit. It sounded like he's sending you some color toner down because there's so much color on your map. There's so much.
Right. Yeah, we have a busy program this year.
And really a lot of work around the Sioux Falls area and our rural connections as well. And I think later on you're going to get into some of those projects.
Yeah, we'll touch on those projects here a little bit later.
Great. So if you had some time to walk around before the meeting started, hopefully you had a chance to grab some information in the back corner. We have our National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Deployment Plan back there if you're interested in that. We also have a draft carbon reduction strategy. We've got some great maps up along the wall as well. So if you didn't get a chance beforehand, take some time afterwards and please take a look and see what we have available. Again, we are here for engagement and collaboration. I challenge you a little bit, start writing down a couple things, ways that you think we can help improve safety across our state. In order to actually maintain or build a transportation network, we need funding. So that's obvious, right? So as we look at the funding and what we anticipate over the course of the next 4 years, you can see we range from $1.2 billion to about $900 million. Now, a couple of big projects are really looped into that mix. For those of you that ever travel that flat winter area, we have a small bridge down there over a mile long. That bridge alone is anticipated to be over $250 million. Some of you are intimately familiar with it in the room tonight. Others may not be, but we are planning to reconstruct that bridge starting in 2024, probably a 3-year project. It's a huge undertaking for us. We thank our partners in getting that project to where it's at today. We look forward to that construction project being approved by Federal Highway Administration this fall, so we can get it out the door. So again, a great project. But it takes funds. It takes those dollars in order for us to invest in that transportation system. And really, that's paid for by user fees. Whenever you're driving on that road, you have a fuel tax, right? There's a fuel that you put in your car, you're burning fuel, and that fuel tax helps pay for those roads. Also vehicle excise tax. So those are the user fees that help to build and maintain transportation. Whenever we have an investment, that opportunity to invest, what are our first priorities? And our first priority is going to be safety. Our goal is to get everyone home safe every day. This shows a history of crashes, serious injury, and fatal crashes that we've had in South Dakota here in recent history. We were on an excellent trend through 2019, 2020, 2021, and not so good for us. You know, something that we saw nationally. A lot of driver behaviors got involved in that: speeding, unbelted occupants, intoxicated drivers. Really started to see an uptick in those years. Now, last year we did see a downtick, and so far this year, I reported last night, we're down 17% from where we're at last year. Unfortunately, we're only down 10% today on the information I got. So we had a few more fatal crashes that occurred across our state in the last few days. And I think we all can agree that one fatal crash is too many. One South Dakotan, a friend, a relative, whomever it is way too much. And it's not something that we can accept. So we're moving towards Vision Zero, towards Zero Death Initiative. It's a huge, grandiose stretch goal. But again, if we ask ourselves how many lives should be lost each year on South Dakota roads, I hope your answer is zero. Serious injury crashes change people's lives. They change families' lives. Those are things that we can't prevent, things that we need to prevent, but we need help in getting to that point. We've tried various countermeasures, and we're going to continue to be innovative. Centerline rumble strips, shoulder rumble strips, high friction surface treatments, all things intended to keep that driver on the road when maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe they're making a mistake. We all make mistakes. We're human. It's going to happen. But what can we do to help correct that driver so they don't run into somebody else or crash themselves? Other techniques we've used is diverging time and interchange. We actually got our first one open. If you get out to Rapid City, please take the La Crosse Street interchange. Let us know what you think of it. We had an opportunity to be out there about a week and a half ago, and it was working marvelously. People got through there very efficiently. For those of you that have been out La Crosse Street interchange, never stopped and tried to make that left turn movement, you know that sometimes you get backed up for a block or 2 blocks, especially in the morning. It was just unbelievable how seamlessly that worked. People knew where to go. Pedestrians, I think I saw 6 pedestrians using that facility in the time that we were there. Again, they felt comfortable. It was very good improvement we saw out there, and expecting and hoping for the same thing here in 41st Street. Now, Travis, I know the safety is a priority for the region as well. Maybe just go over a couple things you're doing here in your Mitchell region.
Yeah, absolutely. Next slide there, Levi. So like Mike said, safety remains our highest priority on our roadway system. And over the course of the next 4 years, we'll have approximately 29 grading or shoulder widening projects here in the Mitchell region. And this graphic just gives a general idea of where some of those projects are. So our shoulder widening projects, obviously to mitigate those roadway departure crashes that are really prevalent in South Dakota and a lot of the other rural states. Also, those shoulder widenings allow places for disabled vehicles and slow moving equipment to get off the roadway to promote safety. Along with that, we have a lot of grading projects in our region here coming up as part of those 29. Grading projects enhance the roadway geometry. We flatten the hills, straighten out the curves, improve, reduce no passing zones, improve sight distance. So the inherent nature of those grading projects obviously improves safety as well. So in addition to those projects, we also have some standalone safety projects, quite a few of those in our region here over the next 4 years. So we have another 9 projects that will do intersection modifications. That's going to be happening on 14 different routes within our region. And those strategies range anywhere from an intersection realignment to permanent traffic control changes, signals in some cases, roadway lighting and others. We have high friction surface treatment, which has been very successful here in the Mitchell region and all across South Dakota. So we have 6 locations identified for high friction surface treatment. And in 2026 and 2027, we'll be installing our first median cable guardrail in the state of South Dakota. So you can see in the photo there, obviously the strategy is to reduce the potential of those crashes occurring across the median. So we'll have those projects coming. And safety is important to all aspects of transportation, all modes of transportation. So that includes our bicycles and pedestrians. We have 22 projects that will be adding shared use paths, sidewalks, or ADA improvements to enhance pedestrian safety, promote connectivity, and accessibility in those communities. So yeah, each project really has an element of safety to it, but that safety aspect is that one thread that really ties all those projects together.
Travis, looking at the median cable barrier on that lower left-hand corner, is that something that's gonna go everywhere, or you're looking at spot locations? What are you thinking of?
Yeah, we're looking at select locations, so we're kind of been through the scoping process of that now. So really looking at the higher volume areas of I-29 and I-90 in Sioux Falls.
So using the potential of crashes along with any sort of crash history, but trying to leverage those two.
That's correct. Looking at those hot spots.
So again, we need some input. And where do you see opportunities for safety? So again, I'm looking from a general standpoint. We'll get into the project specifics towards the end. Travis is going to go through quite a few projects. So just generally looking at safety, where do you see opportunities? And I'm going to focus on 3 areas. And one of those is going to be on our number one, and Travis, you hit it when you were talking about the grading and shoulder widening projects, but our number 1 fatal crash in South Dakota is a single vehicle runoff roadway. Our number 2 fatal serious injury crash is intersection related. And as we take a look at intersections, we got a lot of intersections, over 80,000 miles of road in our state, and those roads intersect. So what have you seen in other states? What have you seen elsewhere? What ideas do you have? How can we help improve safety on the road or at the intersection? We got to remember too, the person. What about in the car? Now, the safest road out there still relies upon that human to make good decisions. Whether you have a 40-foot wide roadway or a 100-foot wide roadway, people still make mistakes. So what can we do in that area as well? How can we help to improve those aspects that really influence crashes and fatal crashes in South Dakota? So I'm going to ask for input. If you're interested in providing some input, please raise your hand. Mark's got the microphone, so please. One up front, Mark.
Thank you. Good evening, Shannon Austin with the City of Sioux Falls. Travis, at intersections in Minnesota, because I travel in Minnesota Highway 23 and Minnesota Highway 60, where they have a 4-lane facility with a median section. They have a flashing beacon on the side streets when cars are approaching, that they have a flashing beacon that says car approaching. Are you guys familiar with that type of a safety feature? And would that be something that you may explore here in South Dakota?
Yeah, so we actually have explored that. We do have an installation. It's a rural intersection conflict warning system. And I think some of the things that we've seen from our statistics is we don't see a great benefit in intersection safety from that system. I guess, Mike, I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, but at least that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, we leveraged some of that off of Minnesota. They've seen some immediate benefits of it. And we did too. Then it tended to wear off from a driver perspective. The intersection I think you're referring to is actually one that we have in our program right now, Shannon, to convert it to a 4-way stop and add lighting. We're seeing that the intersecting the minor leg that has a stop sign. It's pulling up to the stop sign and they're still going through the intersection when a vehicle is approaching. So a little confusion whether or not it's stop controlled, kind of the same issues we've seen there in the past as well. I would like your input though. I think I've driven that stretch too, and I think they've got quite a few J-turns in there. Do you have any experience with that or not? And maybe your thoughts on that? If you've seen any improvements?
Sure. Yeah, they have quite a few J-turns. I actually like the J-turns, but I think they're most beneficial for people that know how to use them. I have seen just going through on Highway 60 where some people have tried to get in going the wrong way. But I think for most part, J-turns are a very good safety feature for allowing that U-turn.
Thank you.
One other question regarding the high tension median guardrail, again in Minnesota, so sorry to about what MnDOT does, but various portions along Interstate 35 and along Interstate 90, they have that center tension guardrail at various locations in the median. Some of them it's at the bottom of the ditch or next to the driving lane. What is your approach going to be, Travis, on where are you going to put that?
Yeah, so I might have to rely on Harry a little bit if that's been totally determined yet, but I know that there's a lot of variations out there. I took a trip to Missouri recently. I was traveling through Iowa. It seemed like there were a lot of installations where they had it clear at the bottom of the median. I see other ones, right off the shoulder of the roadway. I'm expecting that we're likely going to be looking at something in between that. Probably somewhere down the inslope, some distance off the roadway.
And then I promise this is my last comment.
No, please.
Totally again, different topic, overpasses, both railroad overpasses and pedestrian overpasses. The more funds the DOT can provide for road overpasses, and then just like Interstate 29 pedestrian overpass along all the interstate corridors. Interstates are barriers and railroad crossings are barriers for those pedestrians and bikes, and any type of additional funding that could be provided for those overpasses would be awesome and it's a great safety feature.
Thank you, Shannon. That's something I think we've seen nationally as well. A lot more of a push for the complete streets component, and we're working to incorporate that into our designs as well. I know the city's been working towards that. One thing that, if you're within municipality and you have a rail crossing and you've ever considered rail crossing elimination, it doesn't mean getting rid of the road or getting rid of the railroad. It means going over with the road or going over with the railroad. There's a grant program out there. North Dakota just won one to do the same thing. Essentially take a road that was at grade, bring it over that railroad. So I invite you to take a look at that if you're with a municipality or work with them. There's a big push in that area. For transportation alternatives program funding, that's another option. There's some safe roads for all funding out there, some grants that are available. I know that some other cities were looking at doing that, some areas where they had heavy pedestrian traffic, just constructing that pedestrian path, reconnecting neighborhoods. There's a lot of great opportunities out there from a grant standpoint. You got any questions about it, get with me or with DOT. I know we have Mark Coyne here with Federal Highway Administration as well. The one thing that I found to be the most beneficial, if you just type in Google, whatever you're using for a search engine, US DOT Navigator, like truck or the car, it brings up a great tool that they've got kind of walking you through the different grants that are available out there. So again, funding for things like that maybe aren't the traditional transportation components, but things that are very valuable. Yep. Thank you, Shannon. Any other comments?
Thank you. Mike Healy from Yankton Thrive, former Chamber of Commerce. I'm just going to follow up on a couple of things that was noted a couple of minutes ago about the guardrails. And I think one of the things we've noted is that we do quite a little traveling through Minnesota and also Wisconsin because of family. And historically, I think they've been more in the center, and now they appear to be more at the edge as some of the newer ones are installed. And we've been informed that the reason for that is that if you go into the center with the guardrail, more than likely both sides are going to, whichever side you happen to go into the center with, you're probably going to damage your vehicle. And they found that if they're on one side or the other, that there can be vehicles that end up in the center, but they do not damage their vehicles. And so that was one explanation that was given to us. Now, I don't know if there's anything to that, but we again have noted quite a few on the side as versus in the center. So thank you for taking that step to move in that direction. I would have a question. I think it was mentioned that probably Mike 27 was probably the first that we'll probably be seeing those. And I was just thinking, why that time, and maybe it's because of budget constrictions or something in that area. Also the rumble bars, totally support those, both center and at the edge. And I think that's great. Another one that I had was in the seatbelt legislation, as we know, and I didn't always know this, is that there's not a requirement to have a seatbelt used if you're in the rear seat. And I just think that, if you're to wear a seatbelt, and as many of the accidents come through, many times they're thrown from the vehicle and it's here. And if that was legislation, then we sure from our area or district down there would be fully supportive of assisting DOT and others in trying to promote that out in the future. But thank you for taking those steps on safety in all areas. And I Oh, just one little thing too is I noted this coming up today versus what was in our area recently, and that was the cones were a different color. And they're all orange with the DOT. And this is in our community that they were green, and you could almost miss them because of the color of the green is close to what it may be with grass. And so I would sure, I just be curious as to why we deviate from the orange unless there's another particular reason. So anyway, those are my comments, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mike. Great comments. Maybe just hit on a couple of those points you brought up. The guardrail generally over time, we've continued to try to improve it, and we try to improve the chances that if a vehicle were to hit it, it's, you know, the individual is going to be safe at the end of the day. So the location has been somewhat dependent upon different design standards, and we're seeing a lot different vehicles now than we've seen in the past. It went for a while to a sedan, then to an SUV and some of the larger pickups. So we're continuing to try to look at what is going to do the best job trying to corral those vehicles from getting into a situation they shouldn't. But the location is also important too. So I appreciate those comments. So you take a look at what MnDOT's doing and kind of leverage off of them. There's no need to reinvent the wheel and kind of understand what they're looking at. And 2027 timeframe, I think part of it is to make sure we understand where we're going to install these, make sure we install them right when we get them in as well. So there's a little bit of time lag that we need there to make sure that we get it put in right. So thank you for those comments. We can definitely reach out to those other states and see what they're doing too. As it relates to driver behavior, that was my last bullet that I got up there. I think, again, there's a lot of in the car situations that come up, and trying to find ways to reach people and to help educate them on consequences of doing things or not doing things, whether it's seatbelts or others. That's something that we've kind of struggled with. We continue to reach out and try. You know, I don't know the best way to do it. I don't know if anyone has any ideas on how to help, again, reinforce good behavior when you're behind the wheel, because it's not just your life. You're really right next to somebody else that's going 65 miles an hour as well. So any ideas or thoughts on that from folks, how to get more engagement from people on good behaviors?
Marilyn Renback. My comment is about an intersection in Harry's region. It's Highway 115 and Lincoln County 116, which is also known as 276th Street or the Klondike Road. It needs turning lanes in all directions. Have you experienced when ag producers are coming up and down that highway at 65 miles an hour and there are no shoulders? And there is water on the north, water on the south, water in the southeast. And it's really scary. I'm an ag producer that farms in that corner, and I have watched so many close calls. I've watched helicopters come and take people out of vehicles. So I would strongly request that you look at adding turning lanes, shoulders, just expand the width of especially 276th Street. And I can rest easy in my tractor. Thank you.
Greg, follow up if I would. Can I ask you a couple questions about that? Are you noticing more in the spring and fall during harvest and haul time, or is that consistent throughout the year? You mentioned ag trucks hauling, so just trying to get
Volume wise, more grain is hauled north and south to the local elevators in the fall. However, I market grain all year long. Everybody involved in agriculture these days has grain going to the market all times of the year. And this also includes then normal cars, SUVs included in this. And when you're a semi coming off of 276 trying to get up some speed to go south on Highway 115, they come up over the hill, they're on your tail, but they don't stay there. They're instantly in the other lane trying to pass you. And it's very dangerous. Harry, you need to come for a ride and we'll show you what I'm talking about.
You have your CDL, Harry? Can you help her hold her? Doesn't have a CDL.
Nope, he has a CDL. He's ready to go.
Okay, great.
All right,
Good
I'll get
vacation.
you a semi lined up too.
There
You
you
can
go.
try it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any other comments on safety? Safety overall, things we can do to help improve it? not trying to push a rope here, but we've got way too many people that die on our state highways every year. They die on our local roads, they die on our city streets. Guess I'll challenge each of you to do one thing for me then. I think personal influence is probably a little bit better than seeing an advertisement on Pandora or Spotify. So if you get the opportunity to talk to people, talk to them about seatbelt use, that's one thing that I think is something that we can all do. You know, you may not end up with that person you're talking to that ends up in a crash and dies, but maybe their injuries aren't nearly as severe either. It's a fairly easy thing for us to do. So I'm going to challenge all of you to at least make one reach out, and maybe you can have it grow from there, but make one reach out and be honest and be forthright with those folks about how important it is. So I'll give you the little challenge, a little homework. So safety doesn't work unless we actually have a transportation system. And I'm just going to talk very briefly about what the system looks like. And these are just the bridges here in South Dakota. They actually look like creeks on a map or rivers on a map because we have bridges obviously over all those tributaries and rivers. As we look at our structures in South Dakota, we're in generally pretty good condition overall from a state system standpoint. You can see we're over 97% of our bridges in good to fair condition. We're starting to anticipate a little bit of a drop off. I talked about the Platte Winter Bridge. You can build a lot of bridges for $250 million. We also have other projects coming up. Obviously, Pier Bridge is under construction right now, another major project, and we're going to be looking at the Forest City Bridge up near Gettysburg and Bow Bridge, and we have the Deadwood Box. So some very, very large structures are coming up for construction here in South Dakota. So they play a big part in what we're looking at for the future, but trying to plan for those investments and ensure that we can manage all the transportation while we invest in those structures is critical. So we're also focusing on new ways of doing business, better ways of doing business. Well, it's trying to improve flood resiliency. Looking at stainless steel rebar installation on our bridge decks. Obviously, we put a lot of salts down in the winter. Salt, water, steel, they don't mix. They turn into something else called ferrous oxide, and that's not good for our bridge decks. Pops them all over the place. And also using unmanned aerial systems or drones trying to do our inspections, ensuring that we're catching issues and items early. Without pavements, all you have is just a bridge over water. So we got to talk about pavements a little bit too. This slide just kind of shows our pavement condition, where we've been, where we anticipate to be in the future. Overall, our goal is to maintain 80% of our pavements in good to excellent condition. You can see where we're at today. We're about 90% of our pavements in good to excellent condition. We're projecting that to go up a little bit in those poor and fair condition elements. Again, nothing to be too alarmed about, but as that transition occurs, we're going to see some rougher roads than we see today. But in the same sense, we're trying to maintain that healthy balance of transportation and investment across our state. Again, we're trying to innovate, whether we're looking at notch wedge joints, next generation concrete pavement, or intelligent compaction in the upper left-hand corner. No, that is not a fish locator. That's not the new one that's coming out, but instead it actually GPSs that rollers are going along with heat sensors that allows us to see how well we're compacting that asphalt when that construction project's actually being built. Again, allows a better product at the end of the day. So we're trying to mix innovation along with investment to ensure that this investment lasts for generations to come. Travis, maybe a little bit on what's coming up in the metro region.
So over the course of the next 4 years, we're going to be making a significant investment here in the Mitchell region. We're planning on surfacing. We're resurfacing almost 600 centerline miles of roadway and making shoulder improvements. With that, on our structures, we'll be doing bridge rehab or maintenance on 80 of those structures. 25 bridge replacements are planned over the next 25 or over the next 4 years. Included in that number are 6 interchange reconstructions with programmed amount of about 200 million for interchanges, 5 of those being here in the Sioux Falls area. Aside from the projects above, we also have funding in our program, 116 million transportation alternative projects, carbon reduction program, and the protect projects on a statewide level. You'll see in our STIP right now, some of those are placeholders until projects are identified. We have almost 135 million in pavement preservation projects. So concrete pavement rehabilitation or chip seals or crack seals, focusing on maintaining the system that we have out on the road. And then along with that, we also have funding in our STIP for the local system. So that funding comes through our big grants and our federal bridge replacement grants, along with some other programs that we have, county pavement marking, signing projects. So overall, we're planning up to $1.5 billion in investments in transportation here over the next 4 years. These projects will improve or preserve nearly 50% of the 2,300 centerline lane miles that we have in Mitchell region.
Travis, that is not a typo up there, the $1.4 billion.
Not a typo, sir.
Okay, all right.
Double
great.
check the math.
Okay, good. And it's, I think it's great you put in there the number of miles we're doing, the number of replacements, interchange reconstructions. You know, I think we've all seen significant inflationary impacts in our daily lives. We've also seen the same thing in our highway construction, so that's a big part of it. You know, maybe on the big grant, that's a bridge improvement grant, and the federal bridge replacement grants, that's for local governments. So there's more work coming there as well.
Yeah, that's right. And we don't see as maybe as many of those projects in our region. Some of those projects have been awarded that are under design, soon to be let. I think we have 35 of those projects here headed for letting here, soon. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of bridge work out there, and that work's really needed on the local system.
I think the average age of the local government bridge is right around 50 years of age. So when you figure that a bridge is going to last 75 years, you got to figure out where those numbers fall into place. So there's a lot of local government structures coming through. And definitely on the state side too, we had the same build in those general timeframes. So a lot of bridge work coming up as well. So as we look at investments into our pavements and that infrastructure, again, I'm going to ask you, how can we get better in the pavements and the bridges or lighting, signals, et cetera? What have you seen that's worked out there? What's worked well for us? Where have you seen issues? One up front. Thank you.
Shannon Austin again, City of Sioux Falls. Certainly, I always appreciate the new ideas that DOT is putting down on our pavements. For the City of Sioux Falls, we're always impressed by all of the innovative ideas that you're using on street reconstructions in the City of Sioux Falls. Where I'm coming from isn't necessarily pavements, bridges, or lighting, but basically on the carbon footprint, and maybe that falls more into the landscaping, your native prairies. You guys can build anything and you do it really, really well. But in order to really have a sustainable corridor, you really got to plant more trees that aren't breakaway trees, Mark Leiferman, and you know, flowers that sustain bees and the native prairies. I think that's part of the infrastructure that you have to consider also along your corridors. I have a perfect example on the South Dakota rest area that's right at the Minnesota border. My parents live right there at the Minnesota-South Dakota border and used to have the big, huge welcome to South Dakota sign. And you had beautiful trees and flowers when you had the welcome to South Dakota sign. And then when we redid the rest area, which is a beautiful project, you moved the welcome to South Dakota sign further to the west, which isn't as easy for people to get to. And there's no flowers around it. There's no walkway to get to it because people love to take pictures next to the sign. So it's, you have to, I always think that maybe you could take the infrastructure one step further and do a little bit more on the aesthetic side of it.
I appreciate it, Shannon. Are you doing anything with the city, or are you aware of anything with the city or other cities where they've got different standards, for lack of a better term, regarding that? Like, what are you planting, where are you planting it, and how, and just maybe some input there?
Yeah, so our Parks Department and our engineering and planning, we really strongly encourage just the native prairies, grasses and flowers in areas that, you know, like in the middle of your loop ramps. Those are perfect areas that maybe aren't necessarily right next to the traffic, but do attract flowering trees because they're far enough away from the traveling public. So we have areas all over the town, all over the city, that we have allowed grass to grow taller and have allowed, you know, prairie grasses to grow that have some wildflowers in there to promote that, you know, the pollination. And so there's areas in town that we do have it.
Okay.
That stays away from the salt and the winter kill.
Yep. Okay, great. Thanks. Mark, maybe you can reach out with Shannon, get a copy of what they're working on. Be good. Thank you, Shannon.
And there are some dead trees when you come into South Dakota at the Minnesota border. I would love for those dead trees that were right in front of the welcome to South Dakota sign. Harry is nodding his head like he remembers that conversation.
We may be past the time of the summer where they're just late bloomers.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right, Travis, do you want to hit a couple of spotlight projects and we'll get into some project specific questions? Go from there.
Yeah, so talking about a few of the projects that we have each of the fiscal years. Certainly and undoubtedly the biggest project we have here in both terms of cost and size of project is Platte Winter Bridge on Highway 44. With this project, we'll be regrading Highway 44 both on the east and west side. So we'll be addressing some slide areas that we have, improving the roadway geometry. And then ultimately realigning so we can construct the new bridge to the north of the existing bridge. So we get the benefit of being able to maintain traffic at all times during construction with this project. You can see on this alignment that the new alignment does affect Snake Creek Recreation Area. So we have a project in 2024 to mitigate some of those impacts to maintenance building residents, some of the campsites and interior roads. So this is a $250 million project. We're expecting to let this project here middle of next year. Not sure if work will start the first winter, but we're expecting this to be at least a 3-year project for construction on the Platte Winter Bridge. It's a 20-span bridge over 5,700 feet long on green shafts founded into Lake Francis Case. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Just wonder if you took a look at a box culvert option there.
Yeah, we did look at it. It just won't work out hydraulic. Another 2024 project, South Veterans Parkway. This slide here shows a series of 4 projects, 8.5 miles. And the current project that's under construction right now is Western Avenue to Cliff Avenue. So that project is not in our 24 to 27 tentative STIP, but the other 3 projects are. It's a 6-lane limited access expressway on the southeastern part of Sioux Falls. And the purpose of the project is really to enhance the existing transportation system and prepare for the future traffic volumes that are coming with the growth in the area. So item number 40, I-29 to Western Avenue, that project's an FY24. The next project, Clip to Sycamore, will be FY25. That's item 129. And then finally, item 199, Sycamore to 57th Street will be an FY26 project. The completion on the final project is expected to be late of 2027. And once that project's completed, we'll finish the 17-mile corridor from I-90 to I-29. You can see the total cost there for those 4 projects. The projects that are in the tentative STIP, those 3 projects, $205 million for those. A 2025 project here is Highway 50. This one's from 1804 to US Highway 18. This one's west of Lake Andes. As you can see in the photo below, not much for shoulders on this road, so it's a regrading project. We'll be adding shoulders to this highway. We'll be correcting some of the deficient vertical horizontal curves. We'll be taking a look at the intersecting roads, particularly on the east end there, as they enter the highway at a pretty severe skew. So we'll be taking a look at those connections. This is a 9-mile project. We're going to be building this one in 2026. There's some pipe work on this project, a box culvert replacement, and this project will finish up with an interim surfacing in 2026, and we'll follow with the asphalt surfacing project in 2027. Next slide, Leland. The next one here is a 2025 project as well. This one's a surfacing work that's going to be happening on Highway 46 from Beersford to the Iowa state line. That will be a concrete pavement with asphalt shoulders on this. Along with this project, we'll also be doing a mill and overlay on Highway 11 from 46 down through Alcester. And I wanted to highlight this project. It's actually the surfacing work that follows the grading projects that will be happening in 2024 and 2025. So almost a $40 million project on the books for this one. Once this project's complete, we'll have recent improvements on Highway 46 all the way from the Iowa state line to US 81. So about 48 miles of improvements here just in recent years. Next one, 2026, Highway 34, combined project here. 34 from Woonsocket or just east of Woonsocket to the east junction of 37 and 34. Along with that one, we're also going to be making improvements on Highway 37 from 34 down to just north of the Mitchell Airport. So this is a surfacing project to address surface condition. We'll be covering about 34 miles with this project. We're looking at rubbleizing the existing concrete on 34, installing edge drains, putting an asphalt overlay on that. And then the 37 project will be reclaiming the asphalt shoulders and putting an asphalt overlay on that route as well. Part of this project, you can see to the inset is an intersection modification, and this is at the west junction of 37 and 34. And you can see in the photo that the divided section of 34 carries through that intersection. So it's the footprint of the intersection is large. We've had this intersection does have a crash history up there. So we'll be modifying this to look more like the east junction. We'll be putting a center turn lane, pulling in this section so that there's not quite the distance to travel when you're making that southbound to eastbound movement on this project. This one here is 2026 construction. Next one, Highway 42 from the Big Sioux River to Iowa. This project starts at the Big Sioux River. It's 5 miles long. This project's really to address pavement condition and future capacity needs. So we'll be regrading this one from a 2-lane rural section to a 4-lane divided section. This was originally in our program for 2025. It's now been deferred to 2026 to better coordinate with some of the projects that are happening to the east of here or to the west of here on Arrowhead Parkway. So we have construction planned on this project for 2027 or 2026 and 2027. This project in 27 is on Highway 37 through Parkston. So this is one of our urban grading projects that I referenced earlier. This work is scheduled for 2027, mainly to address pavement condition on here. There's much needed ADA upgrades and there's some drainage concerns within Parkston. So this project will address those needs. We're going to be retaining the existing 3-lane section, putting it back in with a concrete roadway. And this project's just a little bit over a mile and expected to be complete in 1 year. If you want more information on this project, we are having a public meeting here next Tuesday in Parks at the Emergency Services Center. That meeting starts at 5:30. So if you'd like to check that out, encourage you to go to the public meeting. All right, the last project I have is Interstate 229 here in Sioux Falls. This is exit 3 at Minnesota Avenue. Along with this project, we'll be reconstructing both of the bridges on I-29 over Minnesota Avenue. We're also coordinating with the city of Sioux Falls to make some nice improvements on Minnesota Avenue from the Big Sioux River up to 39th Street. This is expected to be 2-year construction. It will start in 2027 and it will go through 2028. We do expect there will be some work here in 2026 with some temporary diversions and setting the temporary bridge to carry traffic so we can maintain 2 lanes on Interstate 229 all throughout construction. Converting this from a single diamond interchange to a much better functioning single point interchange.
Thanks, Travis. Maybe just a couple things to hit on. There's definitely a lot of work coming up, especially around the Sioux Falls metro area. I assume that if you have a chance that you'd like to tell folks to maybe, I don't know, what would you like to tell them about the upcoming reconstruction? That be patient, take your time.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of improvements planned, and I think as you drive around Sioux Falls today, you see construction everywhere you go. And I think that's just kind of the nature of South Dakota. We do have 2 seasons, winter and construction. So we'd be thankful it's not winter at least, right? So, but we do have a lot of work and we ask for people's patience. Typically it doesn't take long to find an alternate route and find out that your commute is not that much longer than it originally was before. So be patient. The improvements are worth it once we get through the project.
Great, thank you. Okay, just gonna move on to the last slide, which I assume there's several folks who want to provide additional questions and comments regarding individual projects or other things that they're seeing. Looks like we've got one right here in the back. Mike's got one.
In reference to.
Mike, we'll get you a microphone.
Mike Healy, thanks. In reference to those bridges and the cost of those bridges, and like the Platte Bridge, does the cost of $250, does that include the removal then of the other bridge? And is that consistent with all of them? Then the cost includes the removal, or isn't that calculated at this time?
Yeah, great question. So the cost would include removal of structure. So the old bridge will be removed with the construction of the new one. Obviously, we're gonna wait till the new one's open and working fine, and we got all the kinks out of everything, but then we'll take the old one down. So the old bridge is coming down after the new one's up, and it should include that cost as well. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Want to make one additional announcement? Representative Julie Ausch came, so thank you. for coming out there. Auk, sorry, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Folks,
I have a question, Mike. On the DDI, we have tried a new technique to communicate with people with a text-in service where they can text in and get the latest updates on that project. Just would like to know people's thoughts on that, if that's a good option to help them keep informed, if they've seen that elsewhere, if they would be interested in us doing that on more projects in the future.
great. Does anyone subscribe to the texting feature for the 41st Street DDI? A couple folks? Has your experience been good?
Been great.
Been great, I hear. Good. How about any other texting services? Does the city offer any of that for other features for things, Shannon, that you're aware of?
Not for projects, but I don't know
Projects?
what you're doing for this, so.
Okay. Well, if you haven't and you end up using that area, you can subscribe to it, Julie. Maybe just quick update how we subscribe to that.
Yes, so you can go on the DOT website under our construction page, and there's a 41st Street project featured. And on there is the information on how you can subscribe to that service, as well as call in for up-to-date information any day. But we would love to see more subscribers to kind of add the value to that service.
Okay, great, thank you. And if I remember correctly, it's not like you get a text every half hour or every day. It's just on major changes that are happening at that interchange, so folks can plan accordingly. About every 2 weeks, does that sound about right? On major milestone that's coming up, help folks out. So spread the word, let folks know where it's at. And maybe we can ask our city partners to do the same as well, spread the word around to get folks more informed. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So on the plat or the Pier Bridge, Missouri Bridge that you did, what was the estimated cost like in this case here? And then what do you anticipate the final cost to be? And then in comparison to the Platte Winter Bridge, we're saying it's 250 million round figures. Does that account for inflation adjustments, some other added cost or whatever that you're experiencing with the Pier Bridge?
Yeah, great questions. Can you introduce yourself and who you represent for the record?
Yep.
Who you are.
Noel Schultz from Jebro.
So originally, I think when we were looking at the Pier 4 Pier Bridge, and this would have been probably 9 years ago, we were thinking it was gonna be around 25 to $30 million. Things changed over time. We added more design features to it, and we saw inflationary impacts on it too. So I think the final cost, if I remember right, it's not done yet, still being constructed, so that can go up or down depending upon it. But I think we're around $46 million, if I remember right, somewhere around there for that construction cost. It came in, I want to say 15% higher than our engineer's estimate. We had somewhere around there, but it's fairly close. When we got the final bids in on that one. So the 250 we have right now, yes, that is for when we plan on lighting it, what we anticipate those costs to be when we get it. But it also includes right-of-way costs. It includes our utility costs, preliminary engineering, construction engineering. So there's other costs included in that $250 million rather than just a low bid cost. I'd be tickled pink if it came in at $100 million, but you know, looking at what things are costing now, the number of cranes that are going to be needed, just constructability, I think our team is, and our consultant team has done a good job of trying to estimate that out. So plus or minus 10% is where we shoot on those, but every cost you see in there should be the cost that we anticipate for the year that we're going to let it. Again, there's some additions in there too, like the additional costs for preliminary engineering, construction engineering, right-of-way and utilities. Great question. Don't hold me to the 260 or 275 with you. How you can. Anyone else tonight?
I'm Lynn Bale from Parkston. I've been at your meetings numerous times. I'm sorry to see Jay's not here because I have some concerns about the current project that you guys have done 44 going west of 37. That has not been a good experience for those of us that live there. In fact, tomorrow Travis and Nate are going to be out there at my place because of some of the concerns. But I do have some other concerns. First, we talked about, I brought this up last year. Mitchell is proposing a soybean crush plant 2 or 3 miles south. And I voiced my concerns then about traffic because of the Enemy Creek Hill, I believe as we call it, and not going forward. Also, when you were talking earlier about safety, and I will be at your meeting on next Tuesday about Parkston. There are certain places, and I believe 81 and 44 is one of them, where there is rumble strips, at least one if not two places before you come up to the four-way stop. There is not that there at Parkston at the 44-37 junction. I truly feel that those might bring some attention because it seems like on an unregular basis, there's people going through that four-way stop, and that's been a four-way stop for many years to come. Then it was brought to my attention on the way over here that are you folks planning on making the 46-37 a four-way stop? When is that going to happen?
Yep, definitely. Do you have anything else?
No, yes.
Yep, okay, just want to make sure I got them all here and yep.
Okay, and then I believe in the past on 37 south of the 44 junction, the shoulder is gravel. I believe in the past, it's been brought up that those are going to be paved. I was wondering when that was going to occur.
Okay.
That's about it. for
Okay,
me.
great. I'm do the best. I don't always read my chicken scratch very well, but I'll do the best I can to cover those. Mitchell 37 South. We just recently, I believe, have a approved traffic impact study, which we've got actual numbers for what the traffic's going to be, get an idea where the truck's coming from, get an idea of what's needed out there immediately. We're also starting a corridor study. So it's not just going down to the soybean plant, but it's going to go even further south than that. So we're kicking that off. We'll have some public meetings on that and get some more input on things. So that's upcoming. Based on timing of when the bean plan will be going and what can get done from a construction standpoint, there may be some interim measures that need to be done and a longer term vision and goals done on that corridor, but we are kicking that one off. I know, Lynn, you brought that up and we've heard, some concerns from folks about what's going to happen with traffic in that area, especially that hill just to the south where the soybean plant is, and folks coming up there. I think there's been some crashes there in the past. So we are working on that one and moving forward. Parkston 81 and 44, definitely bring those comments to the meeting coming up this week, but we've got it here too, that the request to look at rumble strips at that location. Rumble strips work very well to keep those drivers attentive, whether they're in their lane or there's a stop sign coming up. Sometimes they can be a little loud for people that are adjacent or in an urban area. We got a lot of people around, so they're not always used when they get in those urban areas. And so that's one of the reasons you don't normally see them in those areas. We have tried a little bit of work with a different design. It's called a sinusoidal, that you really can't hear it very much when you're outside of the vehicle if you're along the road, but you can feel it in your car, so it gives that same sensation. We've done a couple tests of that for, before a stop sign. And I don't know we've done full deployment of that yet, but it's something we've been looking at. So I mean, we'll take a look at it, bring that comment to the meeting this week, but we got it here too as well. The 46 and 37 junction, that is being converted. So Shannon mentioned the flashing light warns you of vehicles approaching, which was out at that intersection, turn on. That will be converted to a four-way stop. We're looking at that in 2024. So that'll be coming up here next year. There'll be some lighting there as well at that intersection, help draw attention to that intersection. From some research and talking with some folks, it seems like it helps draw attention when you have those rural intersections, if we can put some lighting up there too. So we're looking at that in 2024 timeframe. The last one was south of the 44 junction, the paving the shoulders. I didn't catch the road on that. I'm gonna need to phone a couple friends. Is that 37? 37?
Pretty sure it's this year. It's in Mitchell area.
Okay. Greg says he's pretty sure it's gonna happen yet this year. It's in the Mitchell area, but we should have that information when you get to the Parkston meeting to make sure to follow up with you. And your first comment regarding concerns, sounds like Travis and Nate are gonna come down and visit with you about some of those issues. So thank you for being vocal and sharing your opinions on it. Appreciate it. I think that covers what I had. Is that right? Okay, great. Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else? On the back.
Evening, Mike Garrett, Juffer from Wagner. Didn't see much about the Wagner project through our community. Can you give us a little update on what you guys are thinking?
Certainly planning for reconstruction on that section in 2025. 3-lane section. I'm gonna go from east side of town to west side of town, because that's how it works in my mind. So just bear with me. On the east side of town, we'll be starting out past the dispensary, and we'll be going into a 3-lane section there through town. As you get to Bowie Foods area, a little bit further off to the east of Bowie Foods area, that'll convert to a 5-lane section. And that'll go past the development area in Wagner and then convert back to a 3-lane further off to the west. So it goes from a 3 to a 5 to a 3. That project's planned for 2025 with construction occurring in 25 and 26 timeframe.
Any consideration? Any consideration to the 7 blocks we talked about, from the Bowie section to the Main Street?
Yeah, we've taken a look at it again, and we're moving forward with 3-lane section through there. The volumes aren't high enough, and we feel it's a safer facility for the 3-lane section. The one thing about that corridor, if we continue to see volumes grow to the point where we need to add additional lanes, we can actually expand that corridor out. So we expand additional lanes on the outside. At this point in time, it's the 3-lane section through there, 5 lanes in the Bowie Foods area, and 3 lanes further out to the west. Anyone else? One right in the back here, Mark?
Good evening, Mike. Good evening.
Good evening.
Frank Klochek, Scotland, speaking on behalf of myself, except when I particularly allude to individuals. Heard your testimony this morning on the County Government Summer Study Committee. You guys were very articulate and very convincing, I hope, to those legislators. We do have some strawberry cream pie tonight for the secretary and his undersecretary, Craig Smith. And we would ask them to share that with the outstanding Greg Rochadel, because tonight Greg is making not the ultimate sacrifice, but a supreme sacrifice of missing Tabor Hot Dog Night, where the beer is cold, the Kool-Aid is cold, and the hot dogs are good from Avon, Tyndall, or Avon, Scotland, and Kaler. With that said, we'd like to thank you for the 5 lanes around Tyndall and maintaining the 4 lanes in Bonham County. That's been a very good settlement of that situation. I bring greetings from Bruce Hondo, a farmer who lives on Highway 18 and the 435 junction, or his farm is there. And he's brought it to various people and can't seem to make any headway. And I guess I wasn't aware of the situation, but it's, depending on how you count the mile marker, either 3 or 4 miles east of Menno. And it needs a turning lanes going to the north on that. We call it the Bridgewater Shortcut Road. It's an oil county road, an oil road there. There's been accidents, and you can document them. There's been large farm equipment, services, trucks going through. It's a very dangerous and concerning intersection. The next one, of course, is the slow lane. And you've heard this, and this comes from Dennis Pavandra, the guru in Tabor. Mr. Tabor, we call him, kind of like Mike Healy is the guru from Yankton. And my brother, Richard Klochek, it's 2 miles south of Tabor. And both request this done ASAP. Richard was in almost a serious accident on his way to work the other day again. And he missed, and he has seen a couple of very close ones, and there have been accidents there. And again, why wait till, and then of course, the famous westbound lane going west out of Yankton a few miles, turning north at the Utica Oil Road. Personally, I've taken the illegal thing and turned over on the shoulder to avoid somebody plowing into me. And I've seen other people do the same thing, trying to turn north on that Utica Road. Why do we have to wait till people are killed or severely injured till we do some of these things? And I don't mean to be mean in any way, but these are dangerous, dangerous intersections, and simply fixing the problem, I think something needs to be done. We are consistently taking the shoulder at that intersections to avoid accident. When people stop in the lane they're supposed to, they're plowed into from the backside going to the Highway 46 and 37 junction stoplights, the 4 lanes stop pulling that out. Well, I guess this is the last fail safe. You did that over at 46 and 81 and there's still accidents, serious injury. I don't know what else you can do. I guess the high priced signs and flashing lights and all that didn't work. And I'm not condemning or complaining. I don't know, you've tried about everything, but Louis Ruman, used to be the manager of the gas station in Tabor, said you can't fix stupid when it comes to people driving with cell phones and putting their makeup and their perfume and their aftershave on while they're driving or whatever, but listening to the radio. But anyway, and on a brighter note, thank you for proposing to widen Highway 25 through Scotland from junction 50 to 18. Very much needed. And John Steckley, the former mayor, retired and now deceased, John Steckley Senior of Platt, is looking down from heaven tonight saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for redoing the Platt Winter Bridge. The soybean plant by Mitchell needs a 5-lane. That issue is going to only grow significantly bigger with the traffic counts. And I know you've heard this from myself and others before. And then did Governor Nome announce a new program? Lynn and I were talking about paying for sidewalks, grants for sidewalks in cities on state highways. And then the last one, I carry a quote from a gentleman from Wagner. I believe his name is Jeff Stewart, and this is his exact words. He was at your meeting in Yankton several weeks ago, and everybody was pretty tight-lipped there. And he said the Wagner citizens at the Yankton DOT meeting asked questions why DOT is not following the wishes of the people to keep the 4 lanes. DOT referred to this meeting tonight. What is the answer? Number 1, emergency hospital access vehicles will have a harder time. Fire and ambulance, all that. Propane and fuel trucks service access to the homes on those streets because there are no rear, what do they call them? Side streets to go through there. And also the congestion going from the 4-lane to a 2-lane route with turning routes. And his final concern was the middle turn lanes being used to pass are unsafe and many head-on accidents will ensue. And my wife and I personally had that one night. We were going for supper and we sat at the Wagner intersection, see what the movie was. They have a famous movie theater there on Sunday nights. And we're going to catch what the movie was for next week. And we stopped at the light and we waited and waited, got in the intersection, and the light was way red before we turned. And we came back through and it was the same situation. You do have some traffic count issues there, are very much according to what this gentleman feels and many others. Was it 3,000 signers and then a referendum and God knows how much public support for this. But anyway, and moving on to the last thing, Mike Healy, the living legend, is here from Yankton. I think he has the outstanding attendance record at this meeting, so I want to commend him for that. I was trying to add up our deal, and I think this is my 32nd or 33rd year. I know once we were in Michigan in the legislative meeting, once was wheat harvest and once was 6, so I did miss 3, and I apologize for missing 3 of these meetings. Again, and finally, in closing out, thanks for all you do. We did have a discussion last 2 nights ago. Some people talked to me about trucks, semis, freightliners, lowboys, car haulers, everything going through your infamous roundabouts. Every time I go east by the T exit, I see pieces of metal, glass, and all kinds of stuff, fenders and cars sitting up there wrecked. And talk to nursery and sod businesses and trucking companies around Sioux Falls and throughout the state. And they hate roundabouts. They feel it's an impediment to them doing business in South Dakota. But again, thanks for all you do. And you know, you've done a great job and accomplished many great things to make South Dakota safer and a better place to do business in. And I want to commend all of the DOT. And again, just ask that you share that strawberry cream pie with Mr. Rochadle for his sacrifice tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your comments. One point I'd like to make to you is that we do have information regarding the Transportation Alternatives Program. That is a sidewalk program that you referenced earlier. So you wonder where that was. That's right in the back. Letters of intent are due July 17th. So relatively short turnaround time on that, but the information's back there and there's contact information for you to get a hold of. We do have record of your comments. So thank you much. Anyone else?
Thank you, Mike Healy from Yankton. Frank, maybe some of us are just a little slow. That's why we have to keep coming back every year. But anyway, I just wanted to follow up on one additional item here. But before I get to that, just, appreciation to the DOT and what you are doing, and some of the comments that have been made about being safe, efficient, effective transportation infrastructure for our residents and visitors. Also, really appreciate we do in the southeastern corner down there with the number one, the Highway 46 project is now in process. Of course, heavy construction over at Irene was referred to before. Highway 52, the shoulder widening, which is from Highway 52 on into Yankton. And then, of course, next year, a major project with Highway 81 from 106th Street to 103rd Street north of Yankton. I was going to comment just further on that then, and I do have, I guess, a picture and that could, but I don't know if you're displaying them this year. It isn't necessary, but I can just go ahead and comment on it here. Would be north of Yankton, where the 3-mile stretch from 306th Street to 303rd Street will be taking place through some of those curves in that area. That goes from what was referred to as a Tabor Road to the Vollen Road. And then north of there is a 3-mile stretch, and that goes to the Lesterville Road. That's a 2-lane surface road that, of course, it's 81, high traffic. And I just am raising the dialogue, which we've had before, and just bring it up again, that as we've looked at that, there's about like 10 reasons why we might want to consider that to maybe be an extension of the 4-lane up to the Lesterville Road. That would be 3 miles. That stretch has 5 no passing zone markers on it during that period of, or that section of the traffic. So that safety is an issue. The traffic, number 2, is referred to before as far as the agriculture and camper and the semis that are going through there are very significant, going both directions, considering that as 81 is a major highway. One of the things that has surfaced, number 3, is they have a number of gravel pits and the expansion of that. And again, I talked about the agriculture traffic, but the gravel pits. So there's at least 3 to 4 that enter and exit during some of that stretch of the highway. And then the Lesterville Road intersection, which would be required if it was to be a 4, then going into the 2, which is north of there in a concrete, that basically was addressed here 2 or 3 years ago, and that has worked out very well. So thank you for that. The county roads infrastructure, as we know, we're challenged throughout the state with funds and at the county level also. And so because of that, I think we're seeing a lot more traffic on the main highways, and this one would be 81. And the 81 into that area is like about the center of the county. And so it really does see significant traffic that is not necessarily throughput traffic, but rather that which is coming and going. The surface of that section of the road is probably not to the full extended period of time that you'd like to see, but I think it's something to consider. Number 8, you got narrow shoulders for that compared to the rest of it. The efficiency, looking at that, if we're doing that, which we are, and thank you again, that 3-mile stretch, if that could be entailed in there somehow, such that the north end of that is already going to be and has been addressed. The south end will be addressed as the construction of those other 3 miles are done. And with that being said, then that 3-mile wouldn't have 2 intersections they have to address. And then the traffic flow during the construction. That's 10. One of them that is not listed is something that has surfaced in the last several months, and that's south of us. and that is the discussion of a 4-lane of Highway 81 from North Fork to Yankton. And that's been talked about for many, many years, 30 or 40 years. What has evolved there, which many of you may know or may not know, but in Wygon, there's a huge development in a marina and the area of development as far as recreation. And that is intended to expand with the idea that you're going to see a lot of Omaha and Lincoln people coming up 81 and then go there. And then likewise draw the attention to 81 if that was to be a 4-lane south of Yankton and extend on further north as far as traffic patterns. So I just will close with that. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide some comments, and really appreciate the opportunity to work with all your team and the district meeting in Yankton. I think that is a great, I guess, preliminary to this meeting tonight. So I sure encourage those to take place in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Just maybe hit a topic on that 4-lane stretch from the end of the planned 4-lane to up to 46. Is that remaining portion? And Steve will grab a copy of that arrow if you got it. So we got it for the record too. See if we could grab that. But we are looking at that stretch, Mike. We're in the planning phases right now. I can't guarantee any years on anything, but maybe a rough idea would probably be around that 2030-ish timeframe. But again, we're looking at it right now and going through the planning process and reviewing all the traffic and everything. So I know that's been a topic of concern for folks in the past. So that's one that's definitely on our radar too. I hadn't heard about the Wagon rec area. Hopefully I didn't butcher that word too much, but that's planned to the south, and that's something we could probably talk with our Nebraska partners about what they're planning on their portion 81 too, and see what's planned down there. So thank you very much for being here and always providing good input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Got one question. Mark Blow at the Asphalt Institute. I looking at the STIP program here. Some of these statewide items, the NEVI program, that's electrical EVs, I assume 10 million a year or something on upcoming years. Looks like you budgeted 10 million a year for CRP projects. I'm assuming that's concrete restoration.
No, sir.
Is that what that is?
No, sir. No, and I apologize. We use too many acronyms. It allows us to get a lot more thoughts across very quickly. Not that it's very efficient, but CRP is carbon reduction program.
Oh, okay.
So that's a program that is helping to fund changing out and replacing lighting and some of those other things to make us more efficient. So, yep.
The big one is pavement preservation at 45 million a year. Is that for overrun on jobs, or is that crack sealing, chip sealing, whatever?
Great questions.
I mean, that's like 5 years. That's $200 million over 5 years.
So those are generally shown in the out years. So you're going to see in 2024 actual individual projects. So we stave off the money to make sure we preserve what we have first. So that money in those out years stays at $45 million. And it sometimes goes up and down, and we adjust other project based upon that, because if we don't preserve the integrity of the facilities, then of course they fall apart on us. So it could be chip seals, it could be concrete pavement repair, but generally it's preservation treatments, fog seals, chip seals, things of that nature. As they get closer to that year out, we also get better indication what the condition is. So then we know when we get better plans out there. So yep, that's what those are for. Great question. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions from anybody? Anything online? Nothing online. Okay. Well, I just want to say again, thank you for taking time out of your schedules, coming to a meeting, talking about roads. They're my favorite folks in the world right now. I just love it. We do have free state highway maps for most of you, if you can get there quick enough, but we do have some highway maps and a lot of great information in the back. Please grab some. We're actually going to be around here for a little bit more. If you have ideas on safety, you can see our safety trend slide right over there. Mark Leiferman's going to be over there. Maybe you weren't comfortable bringing something up in front of the group. Go bring some ideas over to Mark. Greg Rochadel, he's going to be over the map for the Mitchell region. Here he's going to be over there too. Travis is going to be up front if you got other things you want to talk about, and I will be as well. So please, if you want to talk with those folks, safety ideas, infrastructure ideas, anything, please go and have that conversation. So for the record tonight, Mark, how many do we have?
40 in attendance.
40 in attendance. Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Drive safe, seatbelts on. Don't stop at the bar, the liquor store on the way. If you do, make sure it goes in the trunk. Have a great night. Thank you.